Hello and welcome to Newsroom Newsbreak. The big story at this hour, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has unveiled a new scheme called Aatmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar and announced incentives to home buyers to rescue the economy out of a historic contraction caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The moves were part of the government's broader Aatmanirbhar Bharat series of steps aimed at fueling a rebound in the ailing economy, which is headed for its worst annual contraction in 4 decades. The finance minister said that the country's economy is seeing a strong recovery taking root, which is due not only to pent-up demand. The Aatmanirbhar Rozgar Yojana will create more jobs, and the income tax relief for the first time home buyers will boost demand in the residential real estate sector. That's what the finance minister said. Let's in fact listen into what she said.
18,000 crores will be provided over and above the budget estimate which was mentioned in the 2020-21 budget under the PM Awas Yojana, particularly for the urban areas, and this extra budgetary resource being provided will help 12 lakh houses to be grounded. Those which have been getting constructed will get grounded, and 18 lakh houses will get completed as a result. We are now giving 18,000 crores in order that 12 lakh houses can be grounded and 18 lakh houses can be completed. What we expect out of it is additional jobs to the extent of 78 lakhs will be created. 25 lakh metric tons of steel will now be bought and sold, and 131 lakh metric tons of cement will be bought and sold. Now, therefore, these are core sector which will be improving on their production and sale, which obviously will have a great multiplier effect on the economy. So, at the moment, what is prevailing is the differential between circle rate and the agreement value. About 10%. Prices may be lower than that, but up to 10% you get relief. Now what we've decided is to increase the differential from 10% to 20% from the period, for the period from the date of this announcement to 30th June 2021 for only primary sales. So the first sale of residential units of value up to 2 crores. So this is a major step towards middle class, which wants to buy when the housing sector is going through a supply side boom. Inventories are sitting, nothing is getting cleared, but people don't have any incentive to go buy it. Now we provide incentive in the form of an income tax relief. Now, looking at the economy, they are giving us this monthly report, which predicts a strong return to proper growth of the Indian economy, to positive growth, and in Q3 itself there could be a strong growth which will bring into the positive terrain, and the expectation earlier was that it will be probably in the 4th quarter that we will reach that kind of a number, but RBI predicts probably that will happen even in the Q3. You also seen that several prominent economists have been writing as to what is the nature of this rebound, and it is just not due to pent-up demand. It's a sustainable, strong economic growth that which is being read by many economists who have been writing, and also noticing that this growth is also getting energized by the unrelenting reform pitch with which a lot of strong steps towards systemic reforms are being taken by the government. There is definitely a strong recovery scene that is emerging. Active cases of COVID have declined from 10 lakhs to 4.89 lakhs. And the case fatality rate has also come down. It is at 1.47 as it stands now, 1.47%. If I move over to talking about the economy, you're aware in the last 10-15 days there have been quite a few measures and steps and indicators which have shown that the recovery is happening and distinctly clearly happening. The Composite Purchase Managers Index has risen to 58.9 in October, and the previous month it was at 54.6, and therefore this is the strongest increase that you've seen in output in close to 9 years. So that itself shows it is just not a pent-up demand, but also a strong pitch for recovery.
All right, let's take it to our panelists now. Joining me is political analyst Rajat Sethi and spokesperson of the Congress Party, Supriya Srinath. Thank you very much for joining me on this discussion. Rajat Sethi, to you first. These number of measures are welcome. The question is, where are the funds going to come from?
Well, I think even in the previous Aatmanirbhar package, there were a lot of questions around where are the ECLGS funds which are going to come out from. And I think the government has planned it pretty well. Previously also they have, I think the report card was given by the finance minister today, and she clearly laid out that more than 3.5 lakh crores under the emergency credit lending scheme to the MSMEs were actually provided. So I think those were there. If you go item by item, I can let you know how it has been budgeted. But I think the overall presentation made by the finance ministry officials clearly lay out each and every head on which the Aatmanirbhar package 3.0 has been released and has been announced today.
But 2,65,080 crore is the estimated cost for all. Has the government planned where this money is going to come from? Are they going to borrow? Well,
so if you were to pick and choose a few of them, for instance, if you look at the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana,
yes,
the government is going to finance it through borrowing. They have also planned a few extended credit schemes to the MSMEs. They're also giving certain benefits to the firms which are enlisted under the EPFO.
Right.
And they are saying that we are going to provide Rojgar Protsahan to those companies who are registered under the EPFO and are adding more employees on their payrolls. So I think most of these are actually going to be financed through borrowing, and the government has provisioned earlier also, and this is just a 10% provisioning of the overall package of the Aatmanirbhar Bharat.
All right, Supriya Srinath, to you now. The steps to create jobs, incentives for home buyers to boost the real estate sector, these are welcome steps, aren't they?
I mean, they would be welcome if there was any better understanding of economy as well as a better understanding of markets and how PSU and public sector banks work. Once again, this entire plan, the so-called Aatmanirbhar 3.0, and the reality is that Aatmanirbhar 2.0 was less than 1% of the GDP, unlike the 10% that was being promised, because the real investment, fresh investment, was only 1.86 lakh crore rupees and not 20 lakh crore rupees that the Modi government had promised. Having said that, this is basically patchwork, and once again, the government is erroneously relying on the credit. Once again, the government wants to lend its way out of a slowdown. You cannot do that when the slowdown is as acute as it is. You please tell me, I do not know whether I'm going to have a job next month or not. I'm not certain if my wages are going to be restored to what they were at pre-COVID levels. Will I go and take a fresh liability, a fresh loan to buy a house? So which is where the basic understanding of how markets, public sector, private sector banks work is lacking.
Yes.
If you ask me, this is a patchwork solution. The government needs to put the consumption cycle back in motion, and that can only be done if you put money directly in the hands of people who most need it. Those are the guys who will turn the wheels as far as the virtuous cycle of consumption is concerned. You can keep giving credit, there will be no takers.
All right, right to reply to Mr. Rajat Sethi, you don't have better understanding of the economy is what the Congress is alleging, that the government needs to put the consumption cycle back in motion. Your response?
Well, I think the public has unanimously decided across the country by showcasing confidence in Prime Minister Modi's handling of COVID as well as the economic handling of the impact of COVID. So let us not debate on that. The other accusation was around what has been the offtake of credit. So I don't know what data points is Congress spokesperson pointing at, but I'm sure she would not be able to corroborate anything with a single iota of evidence. Let me give you contrary evidences. A lot was talked about the Prime Minister's street vendors Aatmanirbhar package, And let me just bring that number out. 26.62 lakh loans have been given to the street vendors alone in a period of just 3 months. If I were to also highlight the Kisan credit card, the additional credit allocation which has been given through the Kisan credit card, 2.5 crore farmers have taken additional credit from the Kisan credit cards, and this is to the tune of 1.5 lakh crore rupees. So credit offtake is happening. People are showcasing confidence in the fundamentals of the economy, and I can go on and on.
Right.
I think the finance minister made a very cogent statement. She showcased at the start where is the economy headed.
Yes.
There are clear signs of recovery, and not just the RBI, but also further independent rating agencies have also changed their predictions or forecasts for India's GDP growth rate and have improved it. And they've all unanimously put a stamp behind government's handling of the economy so far.
Yes.
And I'm sure that this is just the 3.0. There will be more such packages. And I think what we need to understand is that this is a very unique way, an approach of handling the COVID's economic impact. Contrary to all the other countries, how they had tried to do in one go, our government had a staggered approach to handling this thing, so that
all right, you made a number of points. Supriya wants to come in over there. Supriya, very briefly before I go to Nasir Salim.
I will only make one very brief point, that smugness, incompetence and denial is not going to take us through the slowdown. You need competence, you need a strategy. I will just make a very brief point. From being one of the one of the three fastest growing economies in the world, we have slipped to being one of the 7 slowest economies in the world. You can keep saying the mandate. The mandate does not change the reality on the ground, that our growth rate has slipped from 8.3% in fiscal year 17 to 4.2 in fiscal year 20, and we have ended up in a technical recession for the first time ever. And we are not saying it, the data and RBI are saying it. So you can keep saying how great Mr. Modi's handling has been. The reality is that Indian economy is in ICU on a ventilator. You can keep being smugged and incompetent. And you were
I'll give a chance to Rajesh Sethi to rebut that. But before that, let me get in Nasir Salim on his assessment of the economy. Nasir Salim, Finance Ministry sources are saying that the present fiscal deficit target has been breached and they won't be able to meet this year's target, and they can't say where it will reach. How do you think that the government is going to balance these steps with the fact that the fiscal deficit target is not going to be met?
Well, Rohit, I must tell you as a premise first, given the current situation as far as the fiscal side is concerned of the economy, I think we need to be a little concerned.
Yes.
Because, revenue slippages is something which has not been addressed, right? And therefore, I understand the inability of the government to do that because, GST collections, for example, have just started to show some signs of recovery. In October, we saw, 1.05 lakh crores being collected. And I think there are certain green shoots available, certain high-frequency indicators that suggest that we are looking at certain pre-COVID levels of close to about 90%. But those are not good enough to ensure the revenue slippage that we will witness and foresee. I think, clearly as far as the revenue chapter is concerned, the government needs to get their act together. I think that is something which we need to look at more action, whether it is strategic disinvestments of PSUs, or it is ensuring that certain sectors which can be looked at from a massive push from a capital market perspective. For example, if you look at some of the PSUs, they're holding large asset banks, large land banks, for example, in terms of assets. And those, for example,
do you
can
think
be
this
looked at
2,65,000 crore, how should they fund it? Should they borrow? Should the government go ahead and borrow or look at revenues?
You see, Rohit, I've been voicing this opinion for the last so many months now, and I must tell you, I think the government can look at strategic disinvestments from the PSU. As I said, land asset monetization is something which they can look at strategically. Number two, I think there are enough enemy properties. I must tell you, where if you look at those numbers, and I've been saying this openly, there are certain enemy properties which are occupied now with the central government for the longest time ever. They're lying vacant. I mean, they're not even being used to practical use. Those can be put up on sale. I think some of those also, I think certain private sector participation, private equity participation, which I must address and I must admit to you that they have tried to address it. through the NIF, National Infrastructure Fund, where they've said that they will look at infusion of private equity partners and money coming in, where they've outlined the 6,000 odd crores themselves, is a welcome step. But I think here are the 2-3 key points that I want to quickly make. I think number one, given that there is an extension of the credit guarantee scheme, that doesn't necessarily mean that your real estate, you see, the biggest stress today is in three main sectors, which are also, in a sense, multipliers of job creation or job multiplier impact that they create in the economy. And those are real estate, those are civil aviation, because they also employ a large number of people, and hospitality. I think barring real estate, where they've tried to tinker in a few things today, and I must admit, I think those are a welcome step. They're baby steps, they're a welcome step, but I think clearly civil aviation has not been addressed so far. While they've mentioned in PLI, they've put in 10 sectors. I think we would have been happy to hear from them on sectors such as civil aviation and hospitality.
Okay. Let me go across to Supriya Srinath, and then I'll give the final word to Rajat Sethi. Ms. Srinath, so Nasir Salim saying that there are certain green shoots that are visible. GST is showing some signs of recovery. The real estate steps are welcome baby steps. Won't you welcome them?
Look, it is in nobody's interest that the economy is in a slowdown, whether we are in government or in opposition. Nobody wishes for an economy to slow down. But the government is taking steps to revive the economy, aren't they? That's exactly what I'm saying. We are not in favor of a slowing down economy. All that we are saying is have a more strategic review of the economy. Understand where the lacunas are and go around to addressing them. Don't do this patchwork. Don't get into headline management. Today we see technical recession. You come and make these announcements. You have to have long-term solutions that are going to bear results. And I'm sorry, lending your way out of a slowdown is not going to work. You really need to move the needle on consumption, and that can happen when you put money in the hands of the people who are most affected and who actually move that needle on consumption. And those are people in rural areas. Those are people who've lost their jobs. It is not going to work if you tell the middle class to go and buy homes, because they are not going to buy them, quite frankly, right now.
All right. I'm sorry, I'm short on time. Rajat Sethi, the final word to you. The Congress is alleging that the country has officially entered recession, and that the government has.
We aren't alleging that. Data and RBI says we've entered recession. I'm not the one making that allegation.
So respond to that, Rajat Sethi.
See, Congress has had 60 odd years to rule this country. They have showcased what their economic understanding of India is. Let us not get into those details, because that is a very shabby report. Now coming to we all know COVID and the related lockdown did wreak havoc on our economy. There is no doubt about it. But look at the European countries, look at America. Now they are getting into that thinking process. They need to do a complete shutdown of their countries once again. So I think over here, Prime Minister Modi took a decisive step, ensured a lockdown, but ensured that post that the recovery is robust. And ensuring that every segment of the society, that even today, he has talked about farmer subsidies being given through fertilizer routes. There is an additional 65,000 crores which has been allotted in this package. He has looked at the urban Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, how can additional spending can be done. All of this is essentially spending. This all goes into reviving the consumption cycle. I don't understand. I mean, even in the Aatmanirbhar 2.0, the LTI scheme, pushing consumption-based demand in non-durables and durables, all of that push the consumption graph. And I think it is because of these things we are seeing that the market capitalization are at record levels. We have the FDI, which is at absolute record levels. Overall foreign exchange reserves are at $560 billion, which are at all-time record levels. So all of those things point towards a proper handling of the economy and a full marks coming in from the market participants also.
All right. So proper handling of the economy.
9 successive quarters of falling growth before COVID. Please do not miss. That's the big headline. 9 successive quarters of falling growth before COVID. Let's not blame Corona for all their ills. Remember that. This is mismanagement and incompetence of the worst order.
All right. Rajat Sethi, Nasir Salim and Supriya Srinath, thanks very much for joining us on this discussion. Economic revival is clearly a challenge. Some steps have been taken by the government. The question is, where is the money going to come from?